Hello, everyone. It's Sibyl Star, and I'm here to give the astrology update for the Virgo New Moon of 2023. That new moon occurs at 22 degrees of Virgo. It was more like 21:58 on September 14th at 6:40 p.m. Pacific. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you the chart of this new moon. I need to make sure I've got it up here. I do. Okay, good. All right, let us look at that chart. All right. All right, so here is the chart of the Virgo new moon. It actually occurs at 21 degrees 58 minutes of Virgo. Sometimes my ephemeris is like a minute off. Anyway, and it occurs at 6:41 p.m. Pacific, 6:41 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. All right. So there's some really significant astrology aspects in this new moon. The first thing, of course, here is the new moon over here in Virgo. And it's in first off, I would just want to say it's trine Jupiter. Okay. It's trine Jupiter here. And we know a trine is an easy flow. You can see this blue line, this trine. And then it's also a very tight trine with Uranus here at 22 degrees, 58 minutes of Taurus, both earth signs. And they both actually are in a trine as well. It's a little wide with Pluto. It's what, about 5 degrees? No, not 5 degrees, about 7 degrees. It's a 7-degree trine with Pluto here, but that's still, within range. And then it's also trine Uranus, and then it makes a grand trine. So you can see these three planets in earth signs, the sun and moon in Virgo, Pluto in Capricorn, and Uranus in Taurus. Those are the three earth signs. So there's a lot of earth energy. And then it makes what is called a kite, which it has a tail, something you can hold the kite with, which is also called the apex, which is Neptune here. Okay, so it's an opposition. So it's a grand trine with an opposition that makes a formation called a kite. And we'll be talking about what that means. Some other things we're going to be talking about at this new moon is we have Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, is turning stationary that day, stationary direct. Is going to go Mercury's going to go fully direct on September 15th. Okay, we have Venus in a very tight square with Jupiter. Venus is 14 degrees, 24 minutes of Leo, which is square, which is a challenge, with Jupiter at 15 degrees, 23 minutes of Taurus. Let's see, we also have the nodes of the moon are activated. The north node is very tightly conjunct Eris. And the south node is also conjunct Ceres. Okay. We're also going to be talking about Mars in Libra, as it is the ruler of Aries and this north node. All right. So let's see, anything else here? I think that's all I was going to talk about. All right. So let's talk about what all this just actually means. Okay. Well, first off, we're going to be talking about the actual archetype of Virgo. And so the Virgo archetype is called the priestess archetype, and it has to do with sacred work. All of the earth signs have something to do with work, right? Livelihood, work. And I feel like the teaching of Virgo is really more about humility and recognizing that there is no difference between the sacred and the mundane. It is mindfulness. It is our own attitude, our perspective around everything we approach, because every moment is actually sacred. Okay. And as they say, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Okay. All right. Virgo says that it's now time to take care of practical concerns. Tending to the details of everyday life may not sound like loads of fun, but it is a necessary part of our lives and is very sacred. Virgo is detail oriented. It has to do with organizing chaos. As they say, from dust we came, to dust we shall return, and in between times, all we do is dust. So it is about constantly organizing chaos. And it's kind of like the minute you turn your head, it all goes back. So it's important to be organized, but not at the cost of your mental health, is kind of what I'm saying. Okay. But it is good to be organized. And Virgo is the sign of self-improvement. Virgo knows we can always be better. It follows Leo, which Leo, is so much about the inspiration, but Virgo is the part of us that says, yes, you're great, but you could improve. But we can get caught up in perfectionism. That would be one of the shadows of Virgo, believing that as human beings, we could ever be perfect. And spiritual beings were always perfect, but as human beings, it's the humility of recognizing that when we are in a body, that perfection is just not a goal. Okay. Virgo is very health related. In medical astrology, Virgo rules the digestive tract, and Virgo often stores anxiety and worry in the digestive tract. So, I was a nurse for around 40 years. And, one of the things that happened a lot was people coming into the hospital or even just in the home, because I did a lot of home health and hospice nursing as well. Abdominal pain of an unknown origin. And whenever I would see that, I would know that there's probably some emotional process going on that this person is having a hard time digesting, because the mind body is super thin here, the barrier between the mind and body, which really there is no barrier, but we believe there is. But with Virgo, it comes right in, and illness can manifest quickly, but usually has an emotional source. And when we can trace the emotion that is not being digested, we can identify it and then move it on through. Because as we know, Virgo analyzes information, it breaks it down and digests it so we can understand it better. Okay. And so sometimes the information is emotional information we're having a hard time digesting. Okay. Virgo is known to be a healer. Many nurses, doctors, herbalists, many who heal with Mother Earth, through nutrition, through plants, through those kinds of things, are often have a very strong Virgo component. Virgo is a very kind energy. It wants to be in service, but the shadow of Virgo is self-criticism, and it can be crippling. And it's important to know that, what we perceive as mistakes are often just simply learning opportunities, and we're not going to do something we may not do something perfectly the first time. There we come into our perfectionism, is to allow ourselves to make our mistakes so that we can learn, forgive ourselves, and then move on. And it's just so important to be aware of how you speak to yourself. Be as kind to yourself as you would someone else. All right. So anyway, so this new moon in Virgo, and the new moon, of course, sets the intention for the next 30 days. It's a planting of a seed for the next 30 days. And it coincides with Mercury stationing direct. And Mercury has been retrograde in Virgo. So it's super powerful there because, like I said, Virgo is one of the signs Mercury rules. And so it's maybe signaling that you may finally have some clarity and understanding on what is to begin now, especially if there were delays, misunderstandings, or uncertainty. Okay, I'm going to be talking a little bit more later on about Mercury and Virgo going direct, because it does go direct the next day. Now, this new moon in Virgo is trine Jupiter, and Jupiter, of course, Jupiter in Taurus at 15 degrees. And Jupiter in Taurus is so much about prosperity and abundance. But, part of the prosperity and abundance is allowing yourself to receive. It is getting into that flow of giving and receiving, staying in that flow. Okay. And to recognize that abundance comes in many forms, not just money. Abundance comes comes in friends. It comes maybe, in your garden. You might have a beautiful, very abundant garden. It just comes in so many different ways. And so having gratitude for the many ways the universe shows you that you are loved, and as the abundance flows in, just say, thank you, give me more, and be willing to just accept and receive the gifts the universe wants to give you. And sometimes it's harder to receive than it is to give. Okay. All right. We also have, like I said, Uranus in Taurus trines the new moon, which is accelerating developments and may bring unexpected surprises that support whatever your intention may be. And I also feel like with Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, Taurus is so much about the body, and as we know, Virgo is so much about healing. It's about paying attention to the wisdom of your body. It is an act of self-love. Your body might be trying to get your intention, and to remember that our bodies are living temples of love. That's what they are. We are the embodiment of love. And so to listen to and take care of your body, okay? And to know that our body is a gift from Mother Earth. And as we honor her, we honor our own bodies. So there is a grand trine, like I said, and a grand trine is a gift. It's a talent. It's an easy flow. And this is actually has a kite, which has an opening, because sometimes a grand trine, the energy can just flow in the trine, and then it's kind of like an artist who really just paints for themselves, which is wonderful. But when there is like an apex point, a release point, there's a way to then share it with the world. All right. So the grand trine with Pluto and Uranus bring in strong earth energy and may open up resources, plans, and also show us some practical steps, and allowing us to create with this earth energy and a deep connection to Mother Earth. The new moon is engaged in a beautiful kite aspect. The new moon is the propeller of the kite, and Neptune is the apex of the kite. And this means that whatever we seed at the time of the new moon will eventually bloom into something beautiful and magical. In this lunation cycle, our dreams can come true. You can really start to be able to envision the direction of your life. And I love this quote from Yogananda because I think it exemplifies the deep energy of this new moon. And he says, do your best and then relax. Basically, set your intention and relax. Let things flow in their natural way. Do not force them. Follow the energy, let it flow, and know that we are always held in the arms of the mother and that everything is perfect. Okay. All that we are having the experiences we need to have for our growth, and that this new moon is a very fertile ground to plant those intentions. Okay. And also all of the outer planets are involved, which are Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. So this makes this a very collective kind of an experience, and a collective frequency raising experience. And Neptune is the divine heart, creating from a place of universal love, tuning into love to create the world we want. All right. Now, we also have, at this new moon, we have 6 planets retrograde. Mercury is stationary, will go direct the next day. So we still have a lot of retrograde energy. And then the retrograde planets are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron. Chiron's not really a planet. It's, some people say it's an asteroid, some people say it's a comet, some people, anyway, it's a celestial body that has entered our solar system and is part of our consciousness now. Anyway, so when all these planets are retrograde, it's a very introspective time. It's time to go within. And when we have planets retrograde, or many planets, especially the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, but if we have a significant number of outer planets too, it is about, there is areas in our life we're being asked to individuate from the consensus reality and to create our own perspective and perception of the world, okay, to grow the greater reality. Like I said, is a time for reset. It's like a log jam of energy that is slowing us down so that we may need this reset. We may have gotten ahead of ourselves and thinking that you know, we're in a place, it can often be like a redirection. Okay, that's kind of more what I'm saying. Okay. And to help us reconsider what comes next. But with Mercury moving direct, the logjam, the energy is starting to break through. It's starting to break apart and starting to really move again. And it's also an opportunity to reorganize our lives and to take care of loose ends. And like I said, Mercury is going direct the next day. Mercury is in Virgo and its own sign. And so it is very focused, efficient, and practical here, detail oriented and organized. It analyzes data. It's a time of deep thinking, using critical skills to analyze the information that is coming in and see through what is true and discover what is true for you. And, you know, there's that quote, and I do love to share it because I feel like Mercury retrograde is very much about changing our perception. There is changing our perspective, the way we look at something so that we see the world differently. And, you know, as they say, when we change the way we look at things, what we look at changes. Okay. So when we change our perspective, our perception of the world changes. Okay. So our perception somewhere has changed during this Mercury retrograde time. And I'm just going to share that mine has been very much around my health and my body. I've had some wake up calls regarding care of myself and my health. And yeah. And so we might find that we are moving forward with a new or changed perspective toward our goals. Now, we also have Venus square Jupiter. You know, Venus went direct on September 3rd. You know, she's still in what's called her retrograde cycle, meaning that this will be her third activation of the points on the chart from 12 degrees of Leo to 29 degrees of Leo. And we could also bring in, just say, all the fixed signs, and especially Aquarius will also having these activations. But also trines, you know, the other fire signs, those are the ones that are most impacted. Anyway, so as Venus goes direct, like I said, it's her third activation. She came into her retrograde cycle. I can't remember the exact day in June, but when she started slowing down, she went direct retrograde on July 22nd, Mary Magdalene's feast day. And then she went direct again on September 3rd, and she'll be out of this whole cycle on October 7th when she crosses over that 28, 29 degree of Leo. All right. Anyway, and as I said, you know, all retrograde planets ask us to diverge from the collective to find what is true for us. And to me, Venus is very much about learning to value ourselves. There is a need to find our own self-worth, even when who we are is not reflected back to us and valued by the culture. Okay, we need to find our own self-worth with Venus retrograde. Venus always brings in relationships, and not only with others, but with ourselves. And it may ask us these questions of how are we valuing ourselves, especially in relationships with others. And in Leo, are we compromising who we are to receive love? And of course, how are we valuing what makes us come alive and brings life force energy? What inspires us? What fills us up? Okay. And of course, the question with Venus retrograde is always who has shown up and who has disappeared from our lives as we have these changing resonant fields. Now, as I said, Venus is square Jupiter, and this has been a long aspect. Usually it just lasts a few days, but this is lasting about a month because of the retrograde motion of both Venus and Jupiter. And so it started around August 20th and will be in effect until September 23rd, and it will be exact on September 16th at 15 degrees of Leo and Aquarius. Now, Jupiter went retrograde on September 4th, and this retrograde motion will end on December 30th. At 5 degrees of Taurus. He went retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus, and he will go direct at 5 degrees of Taurus. Anyway, Jupiter retrograde is associated with looking inward to find true happiness and fulfillment. Okay. And so the challenge is to look within for our happiness and fulfillment. How do we come to like ourselves and our own company? And I love this quote. It says, in a society that profits from self-doubt, liking yourself is an act of self-rebellion. And Venus is actually going to be squaring Uranus at the end of the month. And Uranus is so much about rebellion. And it's just important to remember that others are incapable of filling us up. It is always an inside job. Fulfillment comes from within. And so this can bring about healing of old issues of self-worth and lack of self-love, and remembering that love is our birthright, but that it always starts from within, because we cannot love others if we cannot love ourselves first. Venus is a magnetic energy that attracts others to us in our same resonant field. Okay. And that self-care is an act of self-love. You deserve your own love. And nurturance can be found in the chambers of your heart, in our creations, in our laughter, in our joy, and in our intuition. And to remember that our bodies are holy and temples of love and worthy of sweet, tender reverence. We are the embodiment of love. And remember this, and living it is part of the self-realization process. Okay. Now, we also have the nodes of the moon activated. And of course, the nodes of the moon, whenever they're activated, have to do with destiny. And this north node is at 25 degrees of Aries. And so the south node is at 25 degrees of Libra. And the north node is conjunct Eris, as I pointed out in the when we looked at the chart. And, so to me, Eris is the feminine warrior who has not had a seat at the table for the last several thousand years. She serves the goddess, the mother, but she can cause discord and chaos. If you're not being acknowledged, you do something, you cause a ruckus, you do something to get attention if nobody's paying attention to you. And so I feel like what this is saying is a couple of things. One, it's about standing up for ourselves. It's about being heard. It's about where we say no, where we draw the line. Eris is a very strong feminine warrior. And like I said, she serves the mother. But she also tells us that we want to be effective, not just angry. And so, of course, and we have Ceres, the great mother, conjunct the south node in Libra. And Libra is so much about balance. It's about being centered. It's how you come forward when you stand up for yourself, is to be centered within yourself and not just angry. Because when you're just angry, that's all people can hear is the anger. But if you've kind of thought things out, you're centered, you I'm trying to say, I have strategy. That's the word I'm looking for. Kind of have some strategy, and use some diplomacy and be able to see both sides. Libra can see both sides of a situation. But, sometimes, things just are what they are. This is yes and this is no. And how can you say no in a way that is effective? All right. And as Mars, the ruler of the North Node, is in Libra, is very concerned with justice and fairness, and these issues may come up. And Mars in Libra has an easier time standing up for others than for oneself. But the North Node is in Aries, and Aries is the way forward. And so realizing too that when you're standing up for yourself, you're also standing up for others because you're creating that in the field. Okay. And Libra, of course, brings inner harmony and peace, or it's seeking inner harmony and peace. And unresolved anger and conflict can bring us out of balance quicker than anything. Okay. So I'm actually going to close this with the Sabian symbol for this new moon at 22 degrees of Libra. And 22 degrees of Virgo. And it is a royal coat of arms enriched with precious stones. And so, a coat of arms often indicates our heritage and, our background, our family. And so I feel like what this is saying is telling us to remember our spiritual heritage and how precious each one of us is, and our remembrance of our own inner divinity, our Christ consciousness, which is our true selves. As I said, we are light, we are embodied light, and we are part of all that is and the great source energy. And when we do that, that is actually the Christ consciousness. That is self-realization, when we remember our own inner divinity and that we are embodied light. And it's about they say that we can create a new earth when we allow more of our higher selves to emerge. And so as we anchor in more of our higher selves, we actually draw in a more fifth dimensional consciousness, which is the ascension process and where we are going. These fifth dimensional frequencies, anchor them into ourselves and then into Mother Earth. This is how we create a fifth dimensional reality for ourselves and a new earth. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and wishing you all a wonderful month. If you're interested in a reading, I will have all of my information in the description box. And so just blessings to all and namaste. All right.